I have been estranged from my mother for over 30 years, and my eldest daughter at some point during my estrangement had a relationship with my mother. For a little bit of context, my daughter did have a relationship with my mother, or was exposed to my mother. I gave her access up until the point of her being about 6 years old, and I was in contact with everybody in my group of relatives at that time. My daughter had a relationship with my grandparents and with my mother. My son was about 2.5-ish when I went no contact. He was treated as a non-existent child. My mother would walk past him and completely ignore him. And my daughter was her golden child and who she weaponized against me. I can love her. I can't love you. That sort of thing. There was many, many things in there that were going on. And I want to go ahead and answer this comment and these questions because I think this happens more times than we think, more times than we realize. And it's important how we choose to navigate when our adult child, no matter how young of an adult they are, connects to the parent that we had to estrange from, is going to dictate what your relationship looks like with that adult child in the future. When my daughter was in a relationship with my mother, she was around the age of 19 when it started, I think. Around 19. It had been in secret for a little while. She could have been 18, but right around there. She was going to university in the same city. There were some complications in there that I'm going to keep private for the privacy of my daughter because I put cover over my children. She didn't do anything wrong. Let's just be very clear. She's amazing. She's 42 now. I don't age my children because then I have to age me. Yeah, she's 42. Shoot. Isn't that crazy? Anyway. I have 3 adult children. I have 2 grandchildren. My eldest daughter, while in a relationship with my mother, was estranged from me on and off during the time she was in a relationship with my mother. That wasn't because of my mother. That's because I was 17 when I had her and I should have done better. Did my mother make it easier for her? Did my mother support that estrangement? I'm very sure she did. Was my mother smear campaigning me to my daughter? Yes, she was. So there were those complicated pieces in there. There was a period of time they were in a relationship where I kind of thought they might be. However, my daughter hadn't disclosed to me and I did not ask her because she was a young adult. And even though I was still supporting her at that point in time, I didn't feel like it was my business to ask my young adult daughter, my adult child, how she was doing things in her life. I wanted her to come to me if she chose to. I didn't want to put her on the spot or in the middle. And the reason for that also is, well, there's a few. One, I raised her to be an independent thinker and make good decisions. And I had to trust that. And I'm glad that I did. I would do that the same way all over again. And 2, I didn't want her put in the middle, which is exactly where my mother would have wanted her to be. And I felt that asking her questions might do that. And so I decided to sit back, and remind myself continually the foundation that I had with my daughter and the fact that she was loved by me every day in a way that was demonstrated. And I know she felt, and my children do say that to this day, that they felt loved by me every single day of their lives. So all of that, I just kind of had to breathe through it. And no, it was not an easy thing to do. So let me read the questions and the comment and we'll get into it. How did you manage your daughter having a relationship with your mother? Were you okay with it? Were there boundaries for you? Did you explain to her what kind of person she was and what she did to you? And did your daughter still choose to be in contact with her? It's not my daughter's job to be my protector or to be enemies with my enemy. It's not anybody's job to be enemies with my enemy. And I'm putting it that way. I mean, my mother is nothing to me, so she doesn't even get to have enemy status, but I'm putting it that way for a very good reason. My children are not in any way, shape, or form, never have been, never will be emotionally responsible for me. There's a mouthful. They're not responsible for my emotional well-being. I don't want them to make relationship decisions based on how I might feel. I want them to make relationship decisions on what feels good to them. And I'm pretty verbal about that. And I think that me being verbal about that has given my children and their dad, I want to give him credit, has given them the ability to trust themselves and make good decisions. And sometimes we make decisions because we're manipulated. Sometimes we make decisions because we have nostalgia. My daughter knew my mother till she was 6 years old. She had nostalgic amnesia. She had good memories of her. There were things that she really didn't have into focus. My children knew that I came from a background of abuse. They always grew up knowing that. They knew it at different levels, what it was, as was age appropriate. And just because my mother did horrific things to me doesn't mean that she was going to do horrific things to my daughter. I don't do loyalty in that way with my children, and only with my children. So in other words, would I be close to and trust an adult peer who was in a relationship with me and my mother? No, that looks very different to me. And I believe it should look very different to me because my children have me. I do not have them. And so I'm being really specific around this because as a therapist who works with narcissistic family systems, this is where stuff falls apart with our adult children if we're not really careful about how we handle it and if we're not patient enough to let it come full circle through the natural progression of your direct relationship with your adult child. Eventually, my daughter told me they were in a relationship. And I said to her, I have one boundary. And that boundary is, well, I guess it's more than one in a way. Please don't share my life with my mother, your grandmother, however I worded it. I don't want her to know anything about my life. And the next part of that was, I don't want to know anything about their lives. I told my daughter if at any point in time there is something that she wants to talk about, she has questions about family, experiences, anything related to my mother, not the same thing as sharing current life stuff, my door is wide open. And that is literally where I left it. Because I live in a world of don't tell, show. I'm not saying keep secrets. What I'm saying is I knew what my relationship with my daughter is. And even though we went through those bumps in the road and she needed space and distance from me, I knew that our foundation was strong enough that eventually my mother would screw up big enough that she would see the light and she would get it and she wouldn't be hurt by my mother. I was more concerned about my mother doing something to emotionally harm her than her protecting my emotional well-being by not being in a relationship with her. Remember I said, my children have me, I don't have them. And so as time went on, sure enough, the snake bit because the snake is a snake. You know, the scorpion and the turtle, the scorpion's always, it's in their nature. Eventually my mother bit and I was, guess what? My daughter's soft place to fall. That's my job. And did I like that she was in a relationship with my mother? No. Did I like that she was in a relationship with my grandparents? No. Was it any of my business? Nope. She's an adult. It was my business when she made it my business. And we functioned very well through there. And because I did that and because I didn't double down on the things that my mother put me through, my daughter was able to come to me when she was pulling her shenanigans. And I was able to be there as her support person. And did that take some checking of my own emotions, wishing that she would hate my enemy? Of course it did. I'm not superhuman. It's just that I just didn't focus on that. I chose to focus on my relationship with my child, my adult child, not her relationship with others. That's where I chose to keep my focus. And she respected my boundaries, so our trust was never hurt. She was transparent about the fact eventually that she was in a relationship with my mother. And I say eventually not as a slight to her because I can see why she would not have wanted to hurt my feelings by telling me she's in a relationship with my mother. You know what happened as a result of that? Well, after we healed our estrangement, she was still in a relationship with my mother at that time. My mother did enter my life for a very brief period because my daughter was having babies. And if I had gone to die on the hill of we have the same enemies, I wouldn't have been able to be at the hospital, maybe, possibly, for the birth of my grandchildren. Why? Because my daughter was talking to someone who is a piece of garbage? Like, that didn't make sense to me. And I didn't know that that was what was going to happen. I'm just saying, like, in the big picture of things, we have to think about how things are going to age and what things look like in the future. Right? And so, my mother, out of the blue, came knocking on my door after 17 years of no contact because my daughter was having a baby and she wanted to be at the hospital. I didn't know any of this. All I know is knock, 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 and there she is. And little Marnie was like, oh, I get to have a relationship with my mother. Like, I forgot. How am I supposed to expect my daughter to remember? How am I supposed to expect my daughter to take up my fight when 17 years in, I was bobbleheading because my mother said, I love you. Do you want to have a relationship? And by the way, when I pursued that, I left her a voicemail, which I know she got. And I said, you know, next time you're in town, because she lived 3 hours away, let's go and do lunch. Let's do some shopping. Let's do some stuff. And we never have to talk about the past. And I'm really looking forward to having this new relationship with you. And she never called me back. Do you know why? Because I'm a threat to the narrative that she has around who I am, and having me in her life without her. That's why I think why. I'm not in her head. And because there was no upside for her. There was nothing to look good. You know, her being the victim of me was something that she really enjoyed. So I did see my mother a couple of times up until that voicemail. And that voicemail, I never engaged with her again because it was like, oh, nothing has changed here. She is the same person she's always been. Fast forward a little bit. And again, this is going on for years. My daughter's in a relationship with her. I don't remember what age my grandchildren were when she went no contact with her. I would say they were in single digits. So let's say between 4 and 7 years old, somewhere in there. And, I had written my book, and two of my 3 children wrote the foreword for my book. And my eldest daughter, who has, a double master's degree. Well, my son's a PhD and my youngest is a yogi. Everybody's like so smart and doing so well and so like found their passions, which is like just amazing to me. My eldest helped me to edit the book. We used to do a lot of co-writing together, as a matter of fact. And after she did that, there were some incidences with my mother where she was seeing toxic behaviors. My grandmother had died, which was also a driving force for my daughter because she loved my grandmother a great deal. There was a lot of things that she didn't know at that time, but when she read the book, they knew enough. They knew about lots of things. But when she went through that journey with me, out of the blue, she called me one day and she goes, I don't think it's fair that you're in the world alone and that your mother has everyone. And that's who I raised my daughter to be, someone who could see beyond and who had compassion and who could draw on the life experiences. And as an 18, 19-year-old who's now in her 20s and her brain is changing and growing and, you know, developing, and our relationship is becoming closer because I didn't put her in a position to be responsible for my emotions. I bit my tongue in a way. There were no eggshells or anything. And I put into motion the emotional maturity that I learned in therapy. I said to her, you know, it is what it is, you know, and I don't want you to take up that fight. It's not for you to take. And she goes, yeah, it's my choice though. I'm like, damn, I did something right. So, I'm pretty sure, I know it was video call. She FaceTimed with my mother, and, she said to my mother, I really want you to make things right with my mom. I really want you to take accountability. I want you to apologize. And I want you to stand up in front of the whole family and tell them that it wasn't my mother's fault that you did what you did to her. I know everything. And I want my mother to have everyone just the way you do. My mother shut the computer. And that's the last time my daughter spoke to her. I want you to hold the faith that you can have in your very young adult son to figure things out and be his rock if that's what you're able to do. And if you're not, rather than, unintentionally putting that on his shoulders, do the things you need to do to work on those wounds for yourself. Because if you don't, you run the risk of damaging a relationship that you have worked so hard to have. I'm going to read the rest of your comment. I know it's on the screen here, but I do want to read it out loud because I want to make sure that I didn't miss anything in what I was addressing. And I want to be very clear. I'm making it sound really easy. It's not easy. It's not easy when your kids tell you how you hurt them, when you know what hurt you came from and how much better you did than where you came from. It's painful. It's hard. And it really takes a lot of practice and presence of mind not to bring that into the room. I know it's not easy. And if I hadn't gone through therapy, I can't tell you that I would have handled things the way that I did. At this point in time, I had gone through a lot of therapy to build me into a lot of who I am today. My oldest, and to everyone else out there, please comment in, particularly in response with lots of love and compassion, of course, for this person who's asking these questions, because I think that the community support is invaluable in our healing journey. I've been healing a lot just from connecting to all of you. So I really want to show some extra love and support for you because I know where you're coming from as well, right? I've been there. My oldest son just turned 18, and I really don't know how to handle the fact that after all my mother and his dad have done to him and me, all the humiliation, the threats, and lifelong bullying, he has autism, father never gave a, oh, I can say shit, I swear. I got the fuck up here, just so everyone can see. Grandma said he wasn't autistic. It was my fault he was like that. I want to stop right there and just say I'm very sorry. I get it. And I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that you went through that. I'm sorry for who you had the bad luck to be born to, just like me, right? And be connected to in terms of who you made your son with. I get it. I had my eldest when I was 17. After all those years, I put myself in between him and his enraged dad to protect him. And all those years saying how he wanted to live with me. Well, the day he could make his choice, he chose him. My ex has been triangulating me with my nasty family for 9 years so that I really live and feel the consequences of getting divorced. I can't help it. I feel used and abandoned by another man I now feel I can't trust. Your son is 18. He's not a man. And putting him in any other category beyond he is your young adult child is part of probably what is driving this home for you. And I get the hurt and the betrayal and the loss that you're feeling. And I really want to validate that for you because I know it feels like a huge slap in the face. And I see this quite a lot. And the one thing that, well, there might be more than one, but the top of mind thing that comes is that people who are abusive will leverage your emotions against you. And that will be you giving them more fuel to be able to triangulate your son. Grace is the way that we travel on this one. And it does mean to button up a bit. And I know it's not going to feel good and it isn't forever. If you can find a way to be able to just be his mom as him being, if he allows you to, because I don't know how your relationship is, non-judgmental, not talking about anybody else in the family, their relationships or your wounds. Your wounds are not his wounds. What you did for him to protect him are not his to carry. That's none of his business. None whatsoever. If you can be his parent and only his parent without focus on any of those things, I promise you, and I don't make promises lightly, it will come back in dividends, because people eventually show exactly who they are. And you sound like you have been a loving, protective mother. His dad sounds like he's been an abuser, along with the grandmother. If you can continue to just be the loving mom that you are, in the end, it will all come to pass, because their masks are going to slip and he's going to see the behaviors. Things that people who triangulate our children don't do. They don't check in on their well-being. They don't ask them what they like. They don't take an interest in them. They don't do things with them that are fun all the way through, meaning that any sort of interaction they have, even if it's good in the beginning, has a downside. Those relationships are very transactional. And if you can just keep building on the foundation that you laid with your son and keep a reciprocal relationship going in terms of how the love flows, and not burden him with any of your burdens, because they're not his. You know, we're the adults in the room. You're going to ultimately have the best shot at having a really good, healthy relationship with him after all of this implodes. And even if it doesn't implode, who cares, as long as you can have a good relationship with him. If he sees you as a burden, if he sees you as being needy over him, and he sees his dad as being the fun one who gives him all the autonomy, that's where he's going to go, because it's going to feel good to his 18-year-old brain. So don't, I was going to say shoot. Well, I did. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. I always get worried about the language here on YT, but at the end of the day, I'm tagging you in this. You are who this video is intended for. I know lots of other people will benefit from it. However, I really want to make sure it's coming to you, and you've got this. I don't know if you're working in therapy, if you're able to do that. I hope that you are, because this is a time where support is really, really, really important. Emotionally, it was difficult that my daughter loved my mother. In the end, it worked out, and her loving my mother during that period of time, and my grandparents even, did not change the space that I had in her heart. That's the one thing that's really beautiful about humans. Well, among the list, is that we have an endless capacity to love and be loved. So with that, I'm sending you mine, and thank you for the question. Thank you for being here. This is a really important topic. I hope that you feel safe and seen by me, because that is my intention. And I'll see you soon.